Hi guys, it's been a while, but I'm back and I also have a friend with me. Not a friend, this is my middle child. He's um he's very expressive. But I'm back with a review this week and it's going to be this beautiful book over here and it's called A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. So this was on my 25 in 2025 and it was also recommended by Goodreads, which is how I got my hands on it. And this is, to be honest, one of the first fantasy books I've ever read in my life. And I didn't expect to enjoy it as much, but when I started reading this book, I immediately fell in love with it because it was so well written, well executed, but it was also very soulful, very wholesome. And I don't know how it came to be, but it felt beautiful, just beautiful. The story is of four different people. It takes on a few perspectives. You've got Adira Tamerlane and you've got Jack Tamerlane, and that's our main couple. I'm not going to get into too many of the details because I don't want to spoil it, but it's a very open dynamic where it's like enemies to lovers, but at the same time they are the missing parts of themselves that they didn't realize. And I really enjoyed the character development of both of them because Adira was a little more closed off and she didn't know what she was looking for because she's been hurt in love before, but she's also got like the weight of a country on her shoulders because she is the heir to the Tamerlanes. And you've got Jack, who felt like he was left behind by the people in his own community. He thought that no one wanted him. He thought he was looked down upon because of his parentage, his heritage. And back into the Isle of Cadence, he realized that there is a place for him in this country that he left behind, and there are people that care about him. And he really, he transformed himself, became someone that wanted to stick around, and together they worked as a team to solve this issue. I don't want to get into too many spoilers, but that's kind of the gist of it. And in the background somewhere, you've got another couple. You've got Sidra and you've got Torin. So Torin is supposed to be the captain of the guard that patrols everything. He's a military boy. And then you've got Sidra, who's the complete opposite. She's very nurturing and she's a healer. She works with medicine, she works with people, and she's very soft. The story of how those two came to be is also very sad, but at the same time, there's a lot of holes in their relationship just because there's no communication. And finally, towards the end of it, when they start to open themselves to realize what the other person means to each other, that's when their story really kicks off. And they have this beautiful little family dynamic that's going on. And I loved it because you realize that the person you're living with is your best friend, your partner, but there's such little communication of what each other, like, you mean to each other. And suddenly when that communication is fixed, that like that phone line connects, suddenly you get that all amazing relationship where you feel like you belong somewhere. So that is exactly how Sidra and Torin's relationship picks up. But it's not just the human side of this book that I really loved. It's the fact that this author brought in the elements. She brought in air, she brought in earth, fire, water, and she created something. Because when I think of the four elements, I'm a little bit of a geek sometimes, but I think of Avatar: The Last Airbender. So you think of like action, you think of, fighting, earth bending, fire bending, all those kinds of things. But when you read this book, she has put in to the elements song, music, and expressing and calling to the different elements through music. It's creative, it's amazing because each element has its own properties. Air is very light, it's very free, but it can create a lot of damage, all of those kinds of things. And it could be cold, it could be hot, it could be heavy. But at the end of the day, it's always around us. And the way that she's given such importance to the elements, and she has shown how a community lives in a balance with the elements, is amazing. There's a certain amount of fantasy that comes in here as well, how the Isle of Cadence kind of shifts the way the earth affects the landscape and how people are able to get to further places in a shorter period of time, depending on how the earth is kind of moving around, whether it wants to help these people or not. But it's such a creative book, and I really get why. I'm so glad this was my first fantasy book because I feel like this is exactly what you need. This is a book that talks about healing, it talks about community, it talks about obligations of the family, and just finding oneself. And I have no bad things for this book, and it is part of a duet as well because it left on a bit of a cliffhanger, and I was really sad about that. I loved the book. I loved how the main characters got together, but the end of the book, it shattered my heart. That was so, it was healed throughout the all the incidents of the book, and then suddenly towards the end of it, it kind of broke my heart. I was like, there's no way, there's no reason for this to happen. And but I'm glad that there's a book too, because if this was the way it ended, I would have rioted. But once again, A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross is such a beautiful book. It is an absolute must read. It's light-hearted. It's not very heavy, but the story is gripping. There is nothing about this story that doesn't call to you and to sit outside, look at the plants and whatever, and just read this book because it feels like, how does it feel like? It feels like spring. It feels like you're having lemonade in spring. That's what it feels like to me. So also look how beautiful this cover is. I always say it, but it really is beautiful. It's got the river. That's the main way where you find the story. I'm not gonna elaborate on it more, but it has a lot to do with the story. And you've got the beautiful purple flowers with the golden details. You've got the various shades of blue, like a bit of light blue, sky blue. You've got some navy and some black going through. You've got the little green details on the leaves and stuff. And just stunning overall, you know? So this is the first time no way. This is the second time I've bought a book based on its cover, and this is the first time it has gone right for me. So I'm really glad that I bought this book based on its cover because, oh, but also I was supposed to get it for Goodreads anyway. So yeah, yeah, I guess that's about it. This book has captured my heart. So let me also get into like a few things that really worked for me based on this book. It was description. It wasn't overly descriptive. It didn't go into detail about landscape and nature and the background and the setting and what the people were wearing. None of that, but it had the right amount of detail to portray what you're looking at, where you're supposed to be, what your surroundings are as a reader. It also worked to understand the backgrounds, like the little stories about people in the background, because you don't have a lot of characters in this book, but the ones that are presented are very easy to understand. And having a fantasy background, I thought it would be a little more complicated because the last time I tried to read a fantasy book, the names were way too complicated. There was too much detail. The story just picked up out of nowhere and got into the weirdest setting and at least introduced me little by little. And this is what the book did. It eases you into the story. It puts you into the setting, in the houses, into the lives of the characters, into the problem little by little, and then it takes place into the plot. And that is what I loved about it. And then it eases you out again very, very easily, very smoothly, I want to say. So definitely, if you haven't read this book before, I 100% recommend A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross because this is a great starting point for fantasy if it's not what you're used to. See, I'm a historical fiction girly, so coming into fantasy was a big step out of my comfort zone, and I'm really glad I did it. So the next book I get will be the duet for this one because I really want to see how the story finishes. I also don't remember the name of the book, but I will put it somewhere around here maybe for you guys to see. But I'm pretty sure if you read this before, you already know what it is, and I hope it lives up to the expectations of this book as well. So that is about it for me from A River Enchanted, and I hope to see you guys in my next video, which I will be shooting very soon because the next book is very, very interesting for me at least. So stay tuned and thank you guys for watching this. And if you did enjoy this video, just put like a thumbs up or a subscribe or something, you know. Yeah. All right, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.